I really think after games, Bruce Arena goes to like the local coffee shop and does his own slam poetry. Welcome to AMOREPHILLYUNION, the podcast where we swear to talk about the Philly Union, the whole Philly Union, and nothing but the Philly Union, with as few digressions as possible. We are your hosts. I'm Eric.
I'm C.
And I'm Paul.
Quick bit of housekeeping. A little bit of rest for the wicked this week, as we only have one game to review. So we only have a light one-game week. But that's short-lived, as we're going into it back to our two games a week rate of games. We're over 330 downloads, so we're still ticking up there on our way to help us help the U challenge. Trademark. Big thank you to our surge of listeners in California. They are now California, given the podcast statistical analyzer. California now represents the second largest number of listeners. So thank you, West Coast.
We suspect that might be Sacktown centric. So
yeah,
thank y'all.
Which could be a whole nother podcast we could do about Sacramento, but right now we're focusing on the Union.
That'll be a spinoff.
Okay, so this past weekend, the Union were at home, welcoming second place New England. Going into this game, I think it was safe to say we were a little cautious in our expectations of this game. I'm trying to remember what our
I was the only one that actually predicted a win.
Yeah, Paul was the only one who was confident in the Union's abilities to come through with the win. Everybody else was calling for ties, but not necessarily unwarranted, as New England was coming in.
They're second place. They're a good
second
team.
Place. Now to be fair, they did have their the wheel of fate has turned against them as they are dealing with their own rash of injuries. As we have been, we've dealt with that as a team in the past, so we know how much that kind of stinks. But let's get into it. Okay, so we got one game. New England's coming in second place. Not to be trifled with. And
they did have a good number of injured players coming into the night.
Six. Yeah.
And it was interesting. Before the game, Bedoya apparently picked up a knock on Friday at training. So he had been slated to start the game, but then got pulled. And I wonder if that affected the lineup choice that Curtin rolled out. They called it a 3-5-2, but watching it get played, it almost seemed more like a 3-4-1-2. How far advanced Gazdag was from the rest of the midfield.
And it's interesting too, seeing Wagner and Bizo kind of now committing to play that more midfield wing position. I feel like the previous games they were kind of attacking, wing defenders. Now they're like officially in that midfield kind of position. Yeah. With Lowe, Elliott, and Glesnes kind of holding that back line, which that's a pretty formidable trio to have as your back line. So it's kind of like, we start beefing up our midfield. We can start playing like a 3-3-4. So the Union played a 3-5-2, right? Blake in goal, Lowe, Elliott, Glesnes on defense, Wagner, Martinez, Gazdag, Block, and Bizo in the midfield. Again, with that Gazdag kind of really playing forward in that position. Yeah, and then in the forwards were in Carranza. Revolution were playing a more complex 4-2-3-1. You had a stat on the Revolution's
second most saves in MLS.
Yeah, currently. For their Revolution's keeper.
Yeah, Georgi Petrovic is no slouch. He's he
sure keeper. Looked like he was one of the better keepers I've seen.
He's no Blake, but
yeah, it's not like crazy.
Yeah,
if we had a slum and take a second keeper that we had,
sure,
could do worse.
Yeah, Blake is an embarrassment of riches. I don't know if that works for people, but of note, Bobby Wood was up front for New England. I keep forgetting that he's on that team. So it's always nice to see these US players out there.
Yeah, and you know, the big threat, the big player that I was particularly worried about was whether or not the Union were going to be able to contain Carlos Gil for the Revolution, because that guy just always, you know, he's one of those attackers that, you know, you can contain him for 89 minutes of the game, but he's going to have that minute of brilliance.
Yeah.
And, you know, depending on how tight the game is, that could be the difference between a loss and a draw, or a win and a draw. And you know, just talking about the way this game unfolded, like Curtin said in his post-game press conference, you know, this was probably Flock's best game of the season. Easily the first 20 minutes, he was doing an amazing job. You know, I don't know if it just happened that Gil was on the right side of the Revolution attack and Flock was headed, you know, slated for the left side. You know, watching it, it seemed almost like Martinez was the defensive midfielder, and they just pretty much told Flock to stay on Gil. Don't let him get more than 5 yards away from you. And he did a great job. He was all over him. Yeah. Anytime Carlos got the ball, it was immediately under pressure and had to dish it away or do something with it. And Flock was very, very good.
Yeah, I felt like watching that game, there were so many times when you see that number 31 just in the mix of whatever was going on. Either there were a lot of like nice interceptions too, right? You know, we make these passes and our guys could just pick off those passes and start with that quick counter. Flock, you know, often was involved in those plays. Yeah, it's nice. It's good seeing. It feels like Flock is becoming more of a steady presence on the field, or consistent, or you know, he's having an effect. He's definitely having an effect.
And I think he's growing into the role. Like he's getting more, like you said, he's getting more comfortable with what the Union are asking him to do. He doesn't seem so overwhelmed. Like I know the one game when Martinez wasn't able to play and Flock was playing that defensive midfield role, and he had Pereira and Torres in the starting lineup. It seemed like he was running all over the field and always a couple of yards behind the play. The last couple of games where he's played that defensive midfield role, he's, you know, it's helped that he's had Martinez there, but it certainly seems like he's been more comfortable. Whether that's the rest of the midfield crew makeup, you know, getting the support that he needs, or him just becoming more confident. One of the things that's hard to remember is that Flock is like 21 years old. He's not an old play.
Yeah.
It's not like he's not still growing.
2 years older than McGlynn, you know?
Not even,
you know? So it's like, yeah, there's a lot of potential still to manifest.
Yeah. And then, you know, as far as this game, it's like once Gil went down, I admit I was at the game, but I went to the restroom, and when I came back, I was looking around the field. I'm like, hey, where's Gil? And Nate's like, oh yeah, he got pulled off for an injury. I was like, oh, that was a surprise.
Yeah, pretty early, and you know, I hate to say fortunate.
Yeah,
fortunate for us, unfortunate
strategically,
for him.
yes.
But he apparently has been battling injuries of some sort. I'm not sure what, but
that makes sense.
Pretty much just sat down on the field, and it was one of those, like he knew, like he was just sort of sitting there. He wasn't writhing or anything, but he just knew he was done. I think he signaled for a replacement. So
maybe he got tired of getting kicked by Flock. For, you know, that's it. I've had enough. I don't need to be out here.
Yeah.
I feel like too in this first half, the game, actually kind of the whole game, it was a nice back and forth game. Like it seemed like both teams were making use of that, stopping the attack and then quick with the counter, which I really enjoy that style of game. It really kind of it's very interesting. And Flock was involved in a couple, but I know in the first half there was at least one time where he stopped the attack and like ran the ball down the length of the field. And the hustle in that guy is also just really been something to see.
It was interesting watching it and seeing it from our point of view, from where our seats are. The Union gave them a lot of space on that right side of the field.
Mm-hmm.
So like Martinez would not always close down the attack as soon as they crossed midfield. He would let them keep coming. And there were a number of times that either Carranza or Ora were actually the first Union player to put pressure on the Revolution dribbler. And that was like halfway to our 18-yard line or our 18-yard box from the midfield circle. And I was surprised by how much space they allowed them on that side of the field. But it seemed controlled and it seemed planned. So it wasn't anything that the Union weren't expecting to do, but it seemed like they were really pushing the defense play to the left side, because I imagine that's where Gil normally would play, which is the Revolution's right. But no, I agree too that the back and forth play was very entertaining. It was, it didn't feel like it was a tennis match per se. Like it did seem like there was buildup and there was that quick transition play. And if that didn't result, then there was a bit of cycling, and the Union were probing for where play the ball where the defense isn't. And there were a couple of attacks that had multiple switches of fields, where they would start up one side and cross it to the other and then cross it back, trying to pull the Revolution defense out of position.
It felt like
work.
Sorry, Grandpa.
It didn't work all the time, but they did get some shots off.
Yeah. And I feel like the Union were also making use of the long ball, and effectively, in the sense of it's not just a Hail Mary of a shot. Like our guys were getting on the end of these long passes, and whether or not they, that final shot and stuff like that. I feel like the Union in the past few games have been effectively using the long ball. Again, that whole stop the attack, quick counter, and sometimes that quick counter involves a long ball to a running Carranza or Ora or Gazdag, and when all three are on the field, it feels like you have options. And related to that, I felt Lowe also is starting to kind of make his presence on the field more known. I just feel like he's getting more involved, and I'm seeing him more in these plays, making the good tackles, the good stops, breaking up those plays. I feel like he's starting to cut his teeth now in the terms of the strategy of the team.
Yeah, I think his play is certainly going to make it easier for Curtin to rotate his center defenders.
Yeah.
When Brandon Craig comes back, he'll have him in as a sub if they do more of this 3 center back style. But if they switch back to a 4 back and they only have 2 center backs, then I would expect that Lowe has earned a spot in that rotation. And I would agree he's been doing very well. Yeah. But I would also, this game continued to demonstrate the Union center backs' willingness to dribble it into midfield. Yeah. Every single one of the Union center backs at one point during this game, or multiple times during this game, dribbled it well over the half field line past the mid circle before making a play. There was one point, I think, in this game where Glesnes was actually in the 18-yard box.
Oh yeah.
After he made a layoff play and then continued his run into the 18-yard box, just to see if something would develop. And he trusted that the other two and one of the wing backs would fall back and cover for them, and they did.
Yeah. I even have a note here that Lowe had a shot on goal in the 23rd minute.
He did.
So I don't know if between our defenders getting shots, Flock, and even the last game with Bedoya just hustling up and down the field, it almost feels like the Union are, I don't know if they're focusing on conditioning, that our guys can just run these distances for so long. I don't know if that's working on that stamina to kind of keep up these longer, higher intensity outbursts of energy throughout these games.
Well, it's harder to attack, to defend if you've got 10 players attacking. But, of course, in this game, it didn't work out. We still ended up at halftime. It was 0-0.
Yep. 0-0.
Despite the threats from both teams, more for the Union, neither team had found a way past the keepers.
Yeah. Gill was subbed out. And I think New England acquired 2 yellow cards during that first half. That second one with Bobby Wood was kind of a rough hit on Martinez. I thought it was a bit of a rough hit. Intentional, no, but it looked a little rough. Yeah. So going into the second half, 0-0.
Union had to be feeling confident. I know that the crowd was certainly into it. It felt like there were goals in this game.
Yeah. And me personally, I didn't feel that nervous watching, the New England attacks and the Union, their attacks. I felt.
I mean, I have to admit, once I saw that Gill was out, I was like, okay, now because I know going into this game, I called a 2-1 Union victory. I figured the Revolutions would find some way to beat the defense. But once Gill was out, that made it a lot harder for them to do that.
Although I will say Boateng was very problematic. He was, and credit to him, he was punching holes through our defense.
See, watching it, I was not worried about him at all. Okay. It seemed like anytime he got near the ball, Glesnes was all over him.
Yeah.
He was like a non-issue for the Union defense in game. It was more on the other side. It was more Bobby Wood and the other players because it's interesting. It's the difference between watching it on TV and being there in person.
Yeah.
I mean, Glesnes, it was huge size difference between the two of them. And it just seemed like Glesnes had no trouble stopping Boateng from anything threatening. It's interesting that you saw it differently.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, based on size, absolutely, there'd be no issues. But Boateng is quick, and he was kind of getting those probing attacks through our defense. And but obviously we kept them in check. But it was that to me, he was kind of a clear and obvious threat.
All right, so let's get to the first goal.
Let's get to that first goal.
So the first goal was actually a real nice build-up play, one of those quick transition attacks. The ball gets away of Aura, and as Farrell's running it down, Andrew Farrell from the Revolution trips or he goes down, and the ball goes out of bounds. Gazdag quick grabs it, throws it in, or not Gazdag, Aura throws it in, and Gazdag, follows the ball into the 18-yard box. With his first touch, he puts it near post, bangs it off the upright and into the side net, far side netting. So my first question to you is, did it look like Aura fouled Farrell on that play? You remember it?
I remember now. So like during that play?
So before the throw in, Farrell went down, and Farrell made it look like he got either tripped up from behind or pushed from behind. He tried to throw it, convince the ref that he got fouled.
I'm going to say no, it didn't. I don't think it looked like a foul for 2 reasons. 1, I don't remember it. 2, I don't have any notes about it. So I don't remember.
No, I don't. I have the same reasoning. I mean, you're the one who takes more notes than I do, but no, I don't remember that registering at all. So I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I asked was that Farrell made a big deal about getting pushed or something like that, right. and that made it. Or did a great job. He got it right back in. So even while Farrell was making his complaints to the ref, the ball was in play, and the Revolution did not respond as quickly as they probably should have. But it was a great finish by Gazdag.
Yeah, there was a lot of power, and the
placement was perfect.
Right, and the keeper got his hand to the ball, but it still just kind of powered through his fingers and went into the net.
The place got loud. That was fun. And that was what? That was the 56?
Mm-hmm.
And then it just felt like, all right, where's the next one coming from? And the Union kept the pressure on, and sure enough, another tangle up between Farrell and Aura. in the 73rd, 72nd minute or so in the box this time.
Mm-hmm.
And I get why it was called a foul. Farrell made no play on the ball, did not get contact with the ball, and clearly played Ora's body, and referee calls a penalty kick.
Yeah.
Gazdag once again gets to step up and take another PK for the Union. I don't know how he does it, but the last few times he gets the keeper guessing wrong. Keeper dove to his right, and Gazdag put it to the keeper's left, and it was definitely a nice security goal to get that PK.
Yeah.
And Bruce Arena was not having it in true Bruce Droopy Dog fashion, was got himself a yellow card for I guess some kind of dissent or something, yelling at the officials
on the sideline.
And it seemed oddly familiar to me, so I did a little research, and sure enough, he also got himself a red card against us back in the MLS's back tournament in 2020, when that they did to reintroduce once they kind of figured out how to do COVID protocols, because we knocked them out of that tournament, and he wasn't happy about that and was screaming, got himself a red card, banned for the next 3 games of the season, and a $15,000 fine. So I'd love to know what he was saying. Not the case in this game. Just got
actually, this yellow card wasn't to Arena.
Oh, really? They said that on the announcers.
No, it wasn't. It was Carlos Gil on the sideline who got the yellow card.
Oh.
So he got subbed off in the 35th minute.
Reason.
And then he got a yellow card in the 73rd minute.
So he's like the New England Ali Bedoya, assassin from the sideline.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Bedoya does it without getting in trouble, but he got himself a yellow card.
Well, he is the elder statesman.
So then, true confession from me, as you might be able to tell, I'm not a Bruce Arena fan. I mean, this has nothing to do with anything. I know he's done well for himself, but not.
It's really that whole face from that one World Cup game where he's waving his arms like, "Wah!" Yeah, that was.
Yeah, it's just there's
that was his Howard
bearing.
Dean moment.
Yeah, it totally was. It really was.
And at that point, all 3 of us lost all respect for Bruce Arena.
Yeah, pretty much. That's it's not even like dislike. It's more like this guy.
Unless he eventually comes to Philly one day and gets his MLS Cup, in which case he's a great coach.
Yeah,
but until then,
he's fine.
Well,
he's a great coach.
Players respect him a lot.
Yeah, he is a great coach.
It's obviously I
mean, some of my
from a different point of view.
Some of my fondest World Cup memories for the U.S. was when he was in charge. I mean, we could have done better, sure, but there was a certain vibe I really liked that he brought to the U.S. team, and
he's an effective coach. I don't know that I like the way he has the game played. He and Bob Bradley kind of have their teams play in a similar style, and it's not necessarily as attractive to watch. Like, I much prefer what Curtin is doing with the Union than what they do with their teams. But that's not to say it's not effective. I mean, the guy, not quite Jose Mourinho, but he uses what he has and he gets what he can out of it. But yeah, that was actually a yellow card to Carlos Gil on the sideline, which I found was hysterical. Maybe a little schadenfreude there, but
that's fine. I do one last Bruce note, and that is what is in the notebook. If you'll notice, he always has his notebook.
Oh yeah,
and he writes.
I did see it when he was.
So I don't know if it's like a slam book, and he has his own little private cards that he's awarding to people just to keep himself happy. But
I like to think after games.
I'm sure it's much more strategic than that, but I'm going to make my own story up, and if it's based on Mean Girls, it is. What can I say?
I like to think after games, Bruce Arena goes to the local coffee shop and does his own slam poetry.
So at that point, then I think was it after that PK that the Revs started making a bunch more subs and started trying to really push for anything to get anything out of the game. I mean, it was nice to see Out the Door come in he still looks like a linebacker playing soccer. The man is massive.
Dude. He's a big dude.
Yeah, we were happy to see Josie.
Yeah,
Josie.
Somehow or
I
another,
think we both thought he was still with Toronto. I don't think either of us realized he had bounced over to New England. But
I think he didn't get re-signed, so Bruce picked him up and gave him a contract. And even though he came up in the Red Bulls academy and stuff like that, I still do like Altidore.
Oh yeah. He's been good for MLS. He's been good for the U.S. team.
He was a U.S. mainstay for a long time.
Oh yeah, I still remember that one World Cup where it was
under Jurgen, I think mostly, right?
Yeah, it was first game where he pulled up with the hamstring in that one game, and that was it. I don't know if he played for the rest of that tournament, but I was just that was a heartbreaking injury. You just saw him grab that back. Was like, anyway, let's focus on this game.
So even though Revolution were pushing for something to get something out of it, it was Carranza who would end up getting the last goal of the game late in the 88th minute.
Yeah,
he got a nice tally. I mean, what did you guys think of this one?
Okay, true confession number 2.
Okay.
So they started doing the passing back and forth, and I thought, this is never going to connect. This is never going to happen.
Who's doing the passing?
It was let me get it right. Donovan Carranza. So I thought just with the passing this season has been more old school MLS-y. And by that I mean, like, that's something I used to say a lot when I first started paying attention to MLS, probably about 2009. And like, you'd watch European leagues and there'd be a lovely cross and somebody would tap it in the goal and that kind of thing. Nobody ever crosses never worked, and passes sometimes connected, sometimes didn't. And I felt that season has been much more hit or miss than last season. And so I guess here I am. I'm negging again there, Paulie, but it's I just saw that they're gonna lose this ball to the Revs. They're gonna get it back, and I am thrilled to say I was wrong.
Yeah,
very, very wrong. So I did make a note of that, though.
Okay.
I mean, this was a great play by Carranza to pick up the ball before midfield, drive upfield, play the pass off to Donovan, and then Donovan cross it back to Carranza for the tap in. The important thing to recognize is that Donovan both started this play on a defensive pressure that bounced the ball out to Carranza, and then that pass back to Carranza somehow or another he nutmegged Andrew Farrell.
Yes, he did.
That was the rule of 3. So Farrell gets knocked down by Ura, quick throw in, and then they score, right? And then there's he takes down Ura in the box, PK. And then this last goal, I mean, you kind of feel a little bad for the guy. He gets nutmegged via the pass as it's going to Carranza, right as he's going to put it in the net. It was not Farrell's day.
Yep. Yeah, it was definitely a tough day for Farrell, but it was a really good play from Donovan. I hope that's signs of things to come from him. He also really got to demonstrate his speed. Like, one of the things that's you forget about sometimes watching Ura play is he is tremendously fast.
Yes.
And like, you don't see him use that a ton on camera. Like, you don't pick it up until you watch him a little bit more closely. But it was neat to see. It was nice to see Donovan using his speed in this. And that was just really nice play. Break it forward for a 2-on-1, and that transition just was killer.
And I wonder too if it's a combination of what I'm calling this, apparent conditioning. The guys can seem to be running longer. I don't know if it's also has to do with now he's kind of Curtin switching up the formations. This game was starting to open up a little bit where New England, obviously they're pushing for a goal, so they're kind of stretching themselves out. But I feel like the Union now, we're starting to, as evident from this goal, running the ball down the middle of the field with these passing. They don't have to necessarily take it down a wing. They could take it down the middle of the field. So I don't know if that's a combination of just New England getting tired. The Union really starting to click in terms of their passing, but it was just
It's
really
probably
good to
worth
see.
rewatching it to see.
Yeah.
Legs do get heavy in the
Oh, yeah.
80th minute and later, but you wouldn't have known it by the way Carranza made that sprint.
Yeah.
No, and it was nice to see Donovan doing so well too, because I know people have been very mixed on him. Like you just read the scuttlebutt, as it were, online, and I don't know that he'd been able to dispel it. And I think this was a nice little breakout moment for him. I mean, he went to Drexel, so you can only expect so much. But
yeah.
there it is.
By the way, I'm a Drexel Dragon as well. Anybody listening who doesn't know, I'm not a Lehigh engineer or chicken hawk. I mean Mountain Hawk or whatever.
Yeah,
that's okay. We say chicken hawk too.
But no, it was good to see Donovan get his first MLS assist. Let's see if he can get some goals before the end of the year. That would be really nice to have another, one of the non-starting or non-traditional starters getting some goals and helping out the team like that would be really useful.
Yeah. One thing I noted too was the Union made their first sub as late as the 80th minute. So
he's been doing that a lot. Curtin has been ordering up his subs really late in the games. Because
in the past it was always the Curtin 60-minute sub. I always felt like around the 60th minute that's when he made his first sub. But I've been noticing, like the first sub is coming a little bit later. So I don't know if it's a strategy change or if it's just a sign of things are starting to.
They were very nearly out before we made our first. I mean, part of that was due to Gil going down too. Which
changes the approach.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, that man, he has a certain amount of gravitational pull when it comes to these games. Carlos Gil does. It'd be like us losing Gazdag. It's very similar.
Yeah.
So I mean, the Union very cleanly finished it out 3-0 in the 80th minute, and I guess there was some tussling there at the end that got Real a card in stoppage time.
Yeah, I didn't look on any news on was that right, the New England defender.
Right.
He looked like he came out and everyone came back in. I mean, it kind of looked like dislocated shoulder. I don't know if
I didn't see anything.
Yeah, because when he went down, he was just laying there, and then when he got up, they did that whole he's holding onto his arm as he's walking off the field, and that for those who've broken a bone or sprained or dislocated something, it's that every footfall you're just trying to keep that part of the body immobilized to mitigate any sort of pain from just moving. It looked again, it wasn't intentional, it was just an unfortunate collision there, but yeah, it looked pretty hard on that landing. We're just looking up right now. And while they're doing that,
it's tough to look it up when your last name is By, because it's by New England Revolution. This sounds like you're being smart.
I noticed that the crowd was chanting their Seven Nation Army. Go back to insert name of town or or region, greater regional tri-state area. So anyway, game ends. Union with a lovely 3-0 win. Quick stats, Union continuing their minority of time on the ball with possession, although it wasn't that big of a difference, roughly 43 to 57%, outshooting the Revolution by roughly 2-1. We had 17 shots to their 8, but more impressively were their shots on goal. Union tallied up 7 shots on goal. New England had 0. They had no shots on goal. Also, maybe surprisingly, I don't know, the yellow cards. There were 6 yellow cards in this game. 5 of them went to New England. Which was nice that we were not racking up the majority of yellow cards.
Martinez stayed clean.
You said it, not me.
He had a cheeky little play to ensure that we would get the possession of the ball when it went out. Remember that?
Yeah, it was towards the end. What was it? He was the ball was rolling out past the to the New England
the defender was
back line, yeah.
Yeah.
And he did that little heel flip and right off the defender and then one out over the New England back line, and we got the corner kick. I was just like, that was a cheeky little
he
play.
Walked away from it with a big grin on
he
his
had
face.
a big grin on his face. Yeah.
Big spit eating grin.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah.
So I couldn't find anything.
Yeah. So after the game, rankings wise, right? Union stay in 5th place. New England dropped from 2nd down to 3rd. So the Union are, solidifying their position on the table. Hopefully this is just building the momentum to keep us moving up the table.
Definitely
do you want to talk about
can keep doing it like this, that the international break in June is going to be unfortunate, because there's a break for the couple weeks there, and then some of the players are going to be away for national team duty, and it's just like, this is not the time that the Union want to be losing some of those players if they want to keep the games going, because Gajdog made the team of the match day this week. Carranza was on the bench. I guess when you score a goal like Carranza did and played full 90 the way he did, you're going to get considered. And then, of course, Gajdog certainly deserved it with a 2-goal performance. Like he had, it was an easy pick for him. So they earned that one. And then, like we were saying there before, the Union just performing so well over the last 6 games. It's great to see the momentum building.
I would like to say to any of our listeners who have any idea what's going on with Kai Wagner's socks, please reach out because both in the game that we went into on Wednesday and in this game, giant holes in the back of his calves. So I don't know if there is some new fashion happening.
So Nate pointed that out as well. Nate, while we were at the game, was like, "Look at Wagner; he's already got holes in the back of his sock."
Yeah, so it's something.
Maybe you think about that, and I think what he does is he does that to relieve so they're not as tight around his calves.
I see.
And maybe even the fact that there's a hole there, and his calf in particular, because he's actually muscular, bulges a bit. Maybe it helps box up. I'm not sure. But they are massive circles in the back of the leg that do that. I mean, it's basically the whole calf is sticking up.
It's amazing they're intact by the end of the game and haven't just absolutely shredded. So not a compression sock guy.
I almost wonder if they're seamed in some way. Like they're actually,
they actually
cut and
manufactured.
Yeah.
Surgeon or something done.
It's like the guy wears the sleeveless shirts because his arms are just too ripped. It's like, well, I got to put these holes in my socks and my calves are just
sun's
massive.
out, calves out.
Oh man, so much good material for the lead-in.
Okay. Yeah, but even though the Union are missing a couple players right now with the U20 youth national team away for the World Cup, the U20 World Cup, and it was interesting because I think they sent 4 players, and 3 of them have started the first 2 games of the group stage. Could be wrong about that. It might just be the 3 of them. It's Sullivan, McGlynn, and Brandon Craig that are starting the games. It was interesting that Craig and McGlynn have played both games completely. Sullivan started both games and then got subbed out in the second half. I think the first game he played like 65 minutes, and then the second game he got subbed out at halftime. But they're really doing a good job contributing. In fact, the U.S. won the first game against Ecuador 1-0, and the second half stoppage time winner. And then they won the second game against Fiji 3-0. And both McGlynn and Craig were involved in the second and third goals in that game.
Nice.
So they've been playing really well.
Yeah. How long are they gonna be out for? Is it?
I think. Well, I mean, they'll be out for the whole World Cup, so
Okay.
It's usually a 2-week group stage followed by the elimination rounds, and right now it's looking very likely that the U.S. is going to make it to the elimination stage.
Good.
I don't know exactly how many teams are at the World Cup, so how many rounds are in the elimination stages.
Yeah.
But yeah, I expect them that they're going to get plenty of playing time and plenty of eyes watching them. It'll be interesting to see what international interest comes up. I mean, I could definitely see McGlynn getting some interesting offers during the trade window in July.
Do you want to talk about this MLS Go?
Yeah. I've mentioned it before that I'm involved in the local youth recreational soccer league. And one of the announcements this week is that MLS Philadelphia has been selected as one of the MLS Go sites for this year. And I'm not totally familiar with what MLS Go is, and I'm just reading up on it a bit. But it's a partnership between MLS to help provide recreational soccer to kids ages 4 to 14. And what in particular caught my eye was the fact that they're partnering with this group, this app called Mojo, which I have used over the last 2 years. It's a really great free soccer coaching app especially designed for kids. Over the years, they've really done a good job developing the Mojo app. It's not just for soccer. It's actually, they've got soccer and baseball, basketball, softball. I've actually used a lot of the soccer drills and games for coaching field hockey. It's pretty interesting. It's a really nice app. And over the years, they've done a good job partnering with local soccer clubs to build curriculums. They've done it with U.S. soccer. I know Eastern Pennsylvania Youth Soccer has partnered with Mojo to build their own curriculum or move their established curriculum into the Mojo app. And now this is just building on it from there. And it looks like a real nice program is MLS Go to help get more kids playing it at a reasonable cost. I thought it was an interesting article to see posted up on the Union webpage, and I just thought it would be cool to mention it here.
Cool. Okay. Week 15 coming up.
Well, to be clear, it's match day 15.
Match day 15. Yes. Yeah,
It's not at all confusing.
You're going to continue to do it, and that's okay.
I'm not going to be able to keep those plates spinning. So match day 15 is coming up.
And 16.
So we got a game coming up this weekend.
We got 2 games coming up.
There you go. Yeah, let's not try a number. There we go.
So the Union will be traveling to New York this weekend to play New York City FC on Saturday.
On the trapezoid.
Seriously.
On the trapezoid.
They play in the outfield. It's not.
Oh, right. The field. Yes. Hey, everybody. I'm tired today. So.
And it's only 11:15. It's not even 1 a.m. like last week.
This is early for you.
I still got a couple hours of editing to do before I go to bed. So we're facing New York City FC. They're currently in 10th place. Hopefully the Union can keep this momentum going, because if you look at our MLS record over the past 5-6 games, it's win, draw, win. We've won 4 out of our last 6 MLS games and drew the other 2. So that's a lot of scoring momentum or winning momentum, and hopefully it'll keep going into this game.
Yeah, 2 of those were away wins.
Yeah.
They haven't lost since the away loss to Cincinnati.
Yeah, back in April something.
Early April 8th or something like that.
Yeah. Do we want to talk predictions, expectations?
Just real quick, NYCFC, like you mentioned, is in 10th place. The next game is hosting Charlotte, who are in 9th place, and then the following week is Montreal, who's in 13th place. So these are 3 games where the Union should really be looking to pick up points.
Yeah, it would be great. It would be really great if we can use this opportunity to really kind of beef up our points.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think this NYCFC is probably the hardest game for the Union. They're away. It's a small field. They're going to be playing at NYCFC. Now, NYCFC doesn't have the same caliber of players they've had in the past. Like, they don't have a Castellanos. They don't have, as many scary players as they have in the past. So, I mean, I still like the Union's chances here. It'll be interesting to see how people heal and if there's hopefully no late injuries during training or anything this week. But I think the Union have a good chance in all three of these games.
Yeah, everyone played nice with each other this week. Yeah, I agree, Paul. I agree.
I mean, the one thing I would say is that this season has not necessarily, although we are getting further in, so we have more current results, but this season so far has not necessarily been, it's been one of those, what past results are not predictors of future performance, whatever the disclaimer is that they give on stocks and bonds and things like that. So, I don't know how much stock I put in the placement, although we are getting further in. So, I predict that my prediction will be off. How about that? That's what I predict.
I predict that I will not get this prediction correct. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know if I've gotten one so far.
Okay, I'll step up. I think the Union are going to continue pushing, I just hope they have fun playing, because they seem to do, the results come when they seem to enjoy it, when they find ways to connect with each other, find each other on the field, whether that be with, quick short passes or longer, through balls, or even over the top. I really like their chances, playing away in New York. The field's going to be small. It's going to be tight. It's going to be hard to do a lot of dribbling. I don't think the Union will end up rotating a ton of players. I kind of expect them to go back to the 4-4-2 because it is going to be a more narrow field.
I was got to play 5 aside. That field gets any smaller.
So I do like the Union's chances. I'm actually going to go with a 3-1 victory for the Union.
Ooh, all right. They're gonna be riding this score train.
Yeah, I think the only question is whether or not the defense is actually going to give up a goal, because they haven't in the last 2 games. And I would love it if they could continue those clean sheets.
I mean, the field's so small, Glesnes can just lay down, and that covers the back line.
Well, of course, Glesnes could also shoot from his own top of the own 18-yard box.
It's like the Gulliver's Travel of soccer.
Right. But see, that's just the thing. Because of that field, they have a distinctly home field advantage. I feel like, I'm not clearly not so much one that they're winning every single time, but I just feel like the fix is in. I'm returning the form. I'm going to go 2-1.
Stick with the 2-1.
Sticking with the 2-1 for this one.
Enough.
Because of because I know we had a lot of fun today with the field, but truly there is something a little bit cursed about it for us, I think, in particular. So,
and to be clear, the NYCFC have not lost at home. So far.
Fix is in.
I'm going to say a 2-0 win for New York. They're going to beat us. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to say.
Well, I actually bought that for a second.
Yeah, I'm practicing my sarcasm. I'm going to say, I'm not going to predict the Union to lose. I'm going to say 2-0 Union.
You are allowed to predict the.
Oh, I know.
Okay.
But I'm not going to.
All right.
Okay.
Hope always dies last.
And Charlotte is definitely going to be a bit of a guess here.
Yeah.
Playing at the Union midweek, there I expect to see some rotation. A bit of some of the players may see the formation change up again. So I definitely think the Union are going to be tighter on defense. I think they're going to hold the shutout. But I'm going to go with a 1-0 Union win on Charlotte.
I think you can put that down for all of us.
I'm going to go 1-0 as well. Yeah, we're gonna go for the
unless we have to pick. It's not like Tour de France rules where we have to pick a different
outcome.
There's no prices rights rules.
No, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
1-0, 2-0, 2-1. All right.
$1.
Tour de France, they don't allow them to pick the commentators to pick the same rider to win the stage. They all have to pick different ones. But yeah.
Of course, that's going to be the game that the Union finally break it open for 7 goals.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So my original thought was I was thinking of doing a higher scoring thing, but then I'm going by things that have no bearing. But I was thinking, well, we went to a midweek game that was 0-0. The rotation that you're talking about, there's not that much daylight between us and them. It's not like they're having an awful season. So yeah, I'm gonna go.
Yeah,
that's my rationale.
Yeah, I mean, they're only 3 points behind the Union in the season. I mean, that's the difference between 5th and 9th.
Yeah.
You get the first. The Union are 9 points behind Cincinnati, who are in first.
Wow. I think St. Louis is still top 3. I think they're.
I haven't checked on them.
They got 22 points on 12 games. They're in 3rd place in the West.
That's interesting because we are at 21 points in 12 games as well, or 13 games.
13 games.
So they still got a game in hand. Okay. Okay. So that's what we got coming up. 2 more games. Anything else from you guys?
Not today.
Not today. No.
Okay. Well, hey, thanks for listening to another episode. You can find us at amorephillyunion.com. You can contact us via email at pod@amorephillyunion.com. Twitter, we are amorephillyu. Instagram and YouTube, we are amorephillyunion.
And while we are doing this mainly for our own enjoyment, if you are listening to these, please just drop us a line and let us know.
We'll I don't know. We'll read out birthday greetings. I don't know. Send us an email if it's fun and entertaining. We'll give you or we'll act like more goofballs than usual. So you can get our podcast wherever you get your podcast: Google, Apple. I don't know, guy down the street, wherever you get your podcasts, all of them. So be sure to subscribe, like, comment, spread the word, help the U challenge to make our donation. Sooner we reach that 1,000 downloads, the more money we donate to the Union Foundation. Okay. Well, thanks for tuning in for another episode of Amorephilly Union. We are your hosts. I'm Eric.
I'm C.
And I'm Paul.
Go
Union.
I did describe Wagner's socks as resembling buttless chaps. But I decided to
yes
leave that out of the name.